back in uh, the orange line shutdown of 2022. Um,
Correct.
it's good to see him on now. So, Giddy, would it be helpful to do a quick round of introductions, or
Up to you. I'm happy to introduce the T folks if that makes it easier, or if you want to go with the committee first. I admit this is my first time in this situation, so I might have some silly questions. I apologize.
so I think maybe for the sake of time, if folks don't mind putting their name and affiliation in the chat, and then Giddy, if you want to take it from here and introduce the T.
Sure. Thanks. So we got this request from the committee to sort of have this opportunity to share a little bit about a few of our major initiatives. So I brought with me for each of those initiatives in no particular order, Sam Cotton, who's Senior Director from our Operations Project Delivery to help explain a little bit on the Signals Initiative, John Bowman, who's Deputy Director of in technical engineering to help explain some of our power initiative, and Bill Wolfgang, who is our Senior Director of Vehicle Engineering, to talk a little bit about our new vehicles initiative. So we can go in whatever order you want. Each one of them has a brief deck that they can go through, or we're happy to just answer questions if that's easier. And I'm here as well if anything more general comes up. Also, I'm Giddy Gilman. I'm Chief of Staff to the Chief Engineer at the MBTA. So good to meet you all. Some of you I know more, some of you don't. So good to meet you, everybody.
Unless there's any objections, my thought is probably going through the presentations would make sense, and maybe we could have a brief period of question and answer after each presentation. And Giddy, whichever order you want to go in, we'll.
Sure. We'll
Yeah.
go in the same order I said earlier. Sam, do you want to go first?
Sure thing. So I'll be talking about the Signals project today. Give me a moment just to share my screen. All right. Can you guys see my slides? Great. Okay. Um, so for folks that I haven't met, my name is Samantha Cotton. I'm the Senior Director for MBTA's Operations Project Delivery Group, and I'm overseeing the Mainline Signals Upgrade Project. So before starting, I just wanted a moment and say thank you to everyone here today for your patience and understanding as we continue to progress the Red and Orange Line project towards a successful completion in 2026. So during the presentation, I'm going to explain the details of the Red Line Orange Line Signal project. But first, I wanted to just kick it off with a project status update. So here we've got the project timeline. The Signals project is a state of good repair design build contract that's going to replace in kind the existing analog signal system with a new microprocessor-based signal system. The need for this project was identified coming out of the winter of 2015. I think everybody here remembers that winter. And we started work on this project in November of 2018, and we're projecting substantial completion of the work at the end of 2016, so next year. And the photos that you see here on this slide show the existing equipment on the left, and on the right, you see the new updated microprocessor-based equipment. Moving on to project overview. This project has three major components. That include upgrades to the existing signal rooms and houses, modifications to the signal system in place at Columbia Junction, and upgrades to the Southwest Corridor signals. So by the end of this project, the signal houses will have all upgraded communications along with new wayside track circuits and interlocking processors. Columbia Junction will be restored to full signal capacity, which we haven't had since the accident in 2019. And we'll have improvements along the Southwest Corridor, which will include bidirectional signaling between Back Bay and North Station. So this map shows you our project status. by line. So we've got the red line on top and orange line on bottom, and you can see there's some color coding showing you the status of both installation and then testing of the work. And then the darker red and darker orange show you what's in service. So based on this, you can see that the red line is about 71% complete, and on the orange line, we're about 50% complete. We're currently working towards an imminent cutover on the red line at Quincy Adams and Braintree, which would complete the red line except for the Columbia Junction work. On the orange line, we're also working towards the remaining 8 locations to complete the signal work and cutovers on the orange line. So talking about the sequence of activities here, the project's field work is divided into 3 main categories. We've got design and manufacturing, we have installation of new signal equipment, and we have equipment testing and commissioning. So all design and manufacturing work for all locations has been completed. For installation work, we have 3 locations remaining at Forest Hills, Tinian Beach, and Columbia Junction. The orange line installation will be completed this summer, with red line installation planned for completion of spring 2026. As shown on the previous slide for the equipment testing and commissioning, 16 of the 26 locations have been completed, so we have 10 more to go. All work in part 2 and 3 require day and night access. So if you see impacts to service at all in those areas, it's because we're getting access to do this work. The day work can be done without impacts to service, but night work is intrusive testing, so we require right-of-way access. You'll sometimes see early access, and you might see weekend work where we shut down the system in that area to test. So the day work that we have requires access to the signal rooms and houses. So that can be done generally without impacts to service. And the night work that we have requires some support from different departments and requires the system to be shut down. So that's generally intrusive testing, which requires access to the tracks to test circuits, along with simultaneous access to the signal rooms and houses. Installation work for this project includes new signal components in the signal houses or rooms, in addition to replacement of signal field infrastructure, such as switch machines and cables in the Southwest Corridor. So the installation of new signal equipment is done generally during revenue hours. Sometimes we do need night access to bring equipment in. The installation of new signal equipment and cables are run to temporary locations, and point-to-point testing begins after installation to confirm the integrity of that work. So generally, we see day work and night work to support that. On the Southwest Corridor, the infrastructure work can happen before or after commissioning the system, but we're replacing all switch machines, and that does require diversions with power off. And we are trying to schedule outages and piggyback on other outage opportunities that we have to get that work done. To test and commission the signal system, we can't have any trains running except those that we need for testing purposes. So we also need to test the connection from the new system to the system on either end that we're tying into. So this results in a large work area to run the diversion around. So you can see on this diagram that we have the limits of signal control, but then a test area that expands beyond that, some exclusive use areas that expand beyond that, and then sections for the test train to turn around so that we can keep running that test train through that section. So while it might seem like the limits that we have for the work that we're doing is fairly small operationally to perform these testing, the tests that we need to complete to put the signal system into commission, we have to extend those limits quite a bit to accommodate the testing and mechanics of the test train. Moving on to post-commissioning, once we get the signal system equipment installed and all of it's tested and commissioned, we begin the post-commissioning work. And during this period, all punch list items are completed. All legacy equipment is removed from the right-of-way and from all of our signal rooms and houses. And the performance of the newly installed equipment is monitored for 1 year to ensure full compliance. And so project updates, we've got some photos here that you can look at to see what some of this work looks like. It's not generally the sort of infrastructure work that people associate with some of our diversions. But over the past month, the team has been working hard on both the red line and the orange line. And that includes wayside installations such as wheezy bond inspections and day and night testing, wayside and within the signal houses. So in the past month, we've been working mostly in the Braintree and Quincy Adams areas on the red line and North Station and Chinatown on the orange line. And then I wanted to take a minute to talk about the project benefits. So the signal project benefits are not always immediately visible to the riding public, but there is incremental benefit as each segment is cut over and as the new components come into service. Those bring with them improved reliability and resilience. There are other benefits, such as adding bidirectional signaling through the downtown area on Orange Line, which provides some additional flexibility for the MBTA with train movements. So, if we need to shut down the system in the future, we have more tools at our disposal. And while something like this doesn't really change the day-to-day operations, while everything is running well, if there is a service disruption or planned work in the future, the T can utilize those new features to reduce impacts to riders. Riders will also see less downtime due to signal issues as we replace the existing obsolete system and generally just have less issues with the new system. Signals will also be able to perform more diagnostics remotely and more quickly troubleshoot and pinpoint causes of failure, resulting in less downtime for the system when we do have issues, which means less impact to riders. And that's all that I presented or that I prepared to present today. So I would just then open it to questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. And just want to acknowledge that Mayor Jen has joined us today. So welcome, Mayor Jen. So yeah, we can open up for questions if folks have. If there are any, and Samantha, you did such a great job. I guess you answered everyone's questions preemptively. So thank you. But I really appreciate that and really cool to see the sort of benefit slide at the end. I think that was really helpful to understanding what was sort of what all this work is for. But I see a question from Steve. Steve,
Yeah, I just, could you just explain the bidirectional signaling, how that works and what that does?
Yeah, so bidirectional signaling will allow us to move a train on that track in either direction, which right now we don't have in every area of the system. And this won't open every area of the system up for bidirectional signaling, but it does open up opportunities to be able to move trains back and forth on the same track. So that means that we could do some single tracking in those areas where bidirectional is available. So instead of, say, having to shut down service, between certain limits, we might be able to instead run service on one track and shut down service on the other track, which means we could still have Orange Line service for riders while we could do some work on the other track. So it just creates some flexibility for us there and then still provide service to the passengers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We are very actively, constantly looking for opportunities to single track. For this project and any project, it's cheaper and better for the customer, better for the city streets from a congestion perspective. We prefer keeping the customers on the train. Customers prefer staying on the train. It's not always easy with the infrastructure we have. Sam's team is dealing with that regularly. But we are looking for every opportunity to try to find, and we've gotten a lot better at it this year, I would say, and the year before. But it's still an ongoing process where we're looking to where can we make tweaks, basically, or bigger investments to constantly look for more opportunities at single tracking.
Great. Any other questions? Seeing none, Giddy, take it away for the next presentation.
Thank you so much, Sam. And obviously, if somebody has a signals questions later, Sam's still here. So we appreciate it. I'm going to hand it to John on the power side. John, you want to take it away?
Sure thing. Just give me a sec while I get the slide deck to share. Can everybody see my slide deck?
You're good.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to meet you virtually. Just want to start off with a high level of the power system here at the MBTA. A lot of people don't realize how extensive the network is and how it functions. We're the largest consumer of power in the Commonwealth, and our power system moves about half our ridership. We have two 115 kV, which are transmission lines coming in from Eversource. Over here, they feed the South Boston Power Complex, which about 60% of the power we consume flows through the South Boston Power Complex. And then it flows through our AC network. So we have a 15 kV AC network that runs through city streets, and there might be a couple circuits that go through a tunnel that proceed to our traction power substations, and then further on to our unit substations. So the unit substations will feed our facilities, our passenger stations, and then our traction power substation converts the power from AC to DC and feeds the third rail, the catenary. So at a high level, that's how the infrastructure is set up. Once you get up north into the orange line, kind of out of Metro Boston and down like Quincy South, we start to get private utility feeds from Eversource or National Grid. And those kind of do in a similar nature. They'll feed the traction power substations and the unit substations, and then onto the same, either third rail or a usable system voltage for the building. So that's the system at large. We have 5,000 manholes. We have, hundreds of miles of cables, both on the AC and DC side, that are an intricate part of getting the electrons to where we need them to either power stations or move vehicles. And then I'll get into the investment strategy. So historically, it hasn't been great. We've received about 2.5% of the CIP, while we represent about 20% of the backlog. So we've done some master planning with our planning group. We developed the power master plan, which became an investment strategy kind of per asset class within the power system. So we have the AC infrastructure, the South Boston Power Complex, the DC infrastructure, traction power substations, unit substations, all those various asset classes, 3/4 of which are out of SGR, or state of good repair. And we prioritized within each one of those assets. And we developed a plan, closely with the power department, who maintains the system, myself and the planning group, to really inform the overall need and project approach to address those various assets. We had a lot more success this year. We're getting about 135 million. 35 million is going to go into in-flight projects, whereas about 100 million is going to newer projects, which funded a study to what the South Boston Power Complex. We're developing a master plan for that. It was identified in past reports, but we have generation. We have 68 megawatts worth of generation there that backs up the system. In the event we lost those 115 kV lines, it's what gets the trains back to stations. It takes about 17 minutes to start up, but the two jet turbines are 1970s vintage. We do have the switching yard. We have upgraded the transformers. We have a project underway to upgrade the 115 kV breakers. But we want to take a look at that generation piece and come up with an overall, site plan to inform the overarching, investment there. Cables and duct banks are our greatest out-of-state repair backlog. So we do have a variety of programs to address the AC and DC cable infrastructure, and the duct banks that they run in. Our traction power substations, we provided some additional funding to a couple in-flight projects. There are 5 presently, 4 on the orange line. The Ashmont project, Mattapan expansion is actually adding a traction power substation, or Mattapan transformation project is adding one that's not reflected here, but that's a separate program. And then we're going to do 7 partial renewals of some equipment that's kind of obsolete, hard to find parts and that sort of thing. So we're going to do some midlife overhauls of those, and then replace 6 transformers at 2 different traction power substations. Our unit, and that helps provide resiliency and redundancy. The DC network is pretty robust in the sense that there are a lot of redundancies. So when things go bump in the night, typically it doesn't affect ridership because of how robust the system's designed. The unit substations were replaced. We got funding to replace 2. So we're going to do those at 2 passenger facilities. And then we do have a power systems reliability program, which, the charter is pretty broad, and it gives us the ability to kind of tackle the things that pop up with an infrastructure as aged as it is. The DC protection study and relay is actually not really it's less of a program, more of a project. But that's to, create updated relay settings so that and go to digital so we can improve the performance and reliability of the DC cables and prevent failures. So that's something that was kind of a discrete project where a lot of this other stuff is programmatic. We do have a variety of programs for fire alarm, lighting, and ventilation, life safety systems. So we have a few programs there that are getting some additional funding or new funding. And then the row power resectionalization is it more ties to the row access and taking a look at what we can do to adjust the power sections to create more opportunities to create new work zones and things of that nature. So we did get some seed money for the feasibility on that end. Just to touch on a couple notable programs that existed before. Again, I told you it was a good year for us. I mean, in the last 2 years, we received $20 and $30 million respectively for the power program. So obviously we're in much better shape, but we need to, kind of continue that traction and start, systematically investing at a higher level to have a shot at addressing the backlog. We do have a SCADA program. Ultimately, the intent of that is to replace the master terminal unit, get fiber, get off copper onto fiber. And that's what allows us to open up power sections and do remote control of our power system. So, in the event that, there was a disabled train or, a need to evacuate a train or something on the right of way, it gives us the ability to open up those power sections so that the third rail wouldn't be hot. Things of that nature is kind of what that SCADA system is used for. The next iteration will get a lot more into the data acquisition too. Presently on copper, there's bandwidth issues, so we don't do much in the sense of like the data acquisition piece of the SCADA system. We do have a system-wide elevator escalator program that actually got, I think, $11 million more this year. And the one that we manage from the engineering capital side, there's also a maintenance piece, and I think they also got some money in a different program under the Fair Share Act. So elevators and escalators does have a couple of programs feeding into it. We manage the one that is on the engineering capital side. And then over at catenary, this is really taking a look at, there are newer programs like, the core capacity programs looking at catenary, Mattapan expansion is looking at catenary, but this is our general program to address blue line and some of the stopgap type of upgrades and renewals that need to take place before some of the bigger programs come along. And then the system-wide generator program, the intent of this didn't get any additional funding this year, but it's to renew assets in kind that are getting aged, and then also start to deploy them in locations where they presently aren't today. So that's the high level on the power program. It's really evolved over the last 18 months, I would say. And we're starting to get a lot more traction, and we're starting to invest a lot more in a system that's much needed. Any questions?
Great. Open it up to any questions or thoughts. Sure, Andy.
Good morning. So I think you might have started to refer to this, but one of the questions that I have, more so out of my personal curiosity, has been, I know that the MBTA has run on the Green Line, some 3-car trains in the past, but one of the difficulties was, if I recall correctly, just related to power and the central subway. I think you were talking about core capacity. I'm wondering if that's part of the work that you all are seeing in the upcoming CIP or in future years, even further up beyond that. Not necessarily tied to the 3-car train idea, but just, obviously that is maybe one of the limiting things there in the Green Line system.
Yeah, so the Green Line program, is definitely addressing, the specific, the riderships, the operational models and all that jazz. The power program that I manage or I'm heavily involved in, really ties to more the SGR and the infrastructure upgrades and getting things back up into an SGR where core capacity is an entire program that's really looking at all the factors related to that and in running new train types and everything else. Katie, I don't know if you have any insight
Yeah,
as
so
far as
I
what the
don't
future of that program looks like.
I don't
We large-
remember specifically about 3 cars, I admit, Andy, but to John's point, the core capacity and the entire Green Line sort of change to get ready for the Type 10 has several power elements of it due to the higher power needs of the Type 10 itself, the weight of the Type 10, the sort of differences both on track and in the yard, which gets less pressed naturally. So there are several power elements of anything from aligning the catenary a little differently to power generation to power stuff that John can explain mechanically much better. So there are definitely elements to the Green Line program that are power related, power focused. It's as we are in different stages of the Green Line program, we are sort of, there's a jigsaw there of where you fit in the power projects to fit in with your other infrastructure projects, with the timing of the different vehicle arrival of the Type 10. But yeah, so I don't actually have an answer for you for the 3 car. I don't actually remember. I can find it, but there are significant power elements as getting ready for the Type 10, if that's sort of what your background question is.
Yeah, it's more so maybe how the core capacity and the state of good repair work are overlapping, or where there is an overlap, how those things are kind of being negotiated might be where I'm most interested in, because obviously there's a future, a little bit longer term direction, and then there's kind of the immediate needs today that the state of good repair might be addressing. So I guess maybe it's more that interplay there.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
and
not
I mean,
just power. Go ahead, John.
So, I mean, so there's an indirect benefit for the SGR, the power system, right? So the fact that a Type 9 or a Type 10 draws basically twice as much power as a Type 9, because it's Type 10 enabling scope, it creates this need to upgrade our power infrastructure. By default, we get out of SGR, which like core capacity specifically says we can't address SGR, but because there is a Type 10 enabling component to the power system upgrades, like by virtue of that, we do end up with power upgrades in a more robust power infrastructure, you know, as the core capacity program is designed today. You know, so and to Giddy's point, that there's a variety of different, you know, scopes, and there's enabling components, and then there's the overall project, and different pieces will be done at different points in time. The 3-car piece I'd never really heard of. That might have been before my time. But as far as like the double Type 10s and everything else, there's a bunch of evaluation going on there. But the power system along the Green Line was largely left out of our power master plan because there's a significant investment in the power system that is tied to core capacity. So if that helps answer your question.
Yeah, I think John made some good points there. We're talking about core capacity, and I don't know. I'm assuming most people in this meeting know about core capacity, but just in case anybody doesn't, core capacity is a federal grant that we are applying for the Green Line future, if you would, in simplistic terms. And so it prohibits us from doing state of good repair work specifically, but we are allowed to do state of good repair work as part of renovating or improving or changing the program, the infrastructure. And so John explained a little more in detail, like how the power needs drive a lot of that investment, and how that is going to play out is a lot. And I don't really want to get into it because you can make your own assumptions, but like federal grants being what they are, about like how it's all going to play out specifically. But we have done quite a bit of work internally to identify sort of the critical elements of it in order to both power, which is what we're talking about, but also in general, other infrastructure stuff to get ready for the Green Line needs, the Type 10 and so on. So like there's a lot of moving pieces there that I can explain some of, and I don't really want to get into some of the others because it's unclear still. So we don't have to have that conversation. But yes, power needs in the broadest sense are a significant part of the Green Line program.
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering how much backup you have throughout the system. I mean, locally, when you have local feeds, do those all have emergency generators? And what happens if the main power feeds from Eversource the South Boston fail?
So if we lose the two incoming 115 kV lines, they're redundant lines. If we lose those, we have the 68 megawatts worth of generation. They can carry the whole system that's fed off of South Boston. If we lose those, then we do have station generators, but those wouldn't be powering traction power. Those would be powering egress lighting, fire alarm systems, things of that nature. We have about 117 generators across the system. We do have redundant feeds pretty much everywhere. So like anytime you see a unit substation or traction power substation, we have, two 115 or two 15 kV lines coming in that step down to that system voltage, whether it's the 600 volts DC or the, 480, 122.8, whatever the configuration is for the building. So we have a lot of redundancies built in our system. So I think that for most people, they don't see, the bumps in the night because how much of our system has built-in redundancies. And for the most part, they're dedicated feeds. They're not shared across traction power substations. Eversource did kind of do us a disservice on GLX, where Ball Square and Pearl Street are actually off the same Eversource circuits. So I don't know if you remember, like 6 months ago, 9 months ago, there was we lost both those feeds, which ended up affecting service not because of the traction power issues, but actually because the signals didn't have backup power because we lost both those feeds. But for the most part, like that's the one location where I can think of that we don't have a bunch of redundancy. So, I mean, ultimately, we could use more generators. We could use newer generators, things like that. They're never going to pick up like all of the traction power substations or any of that. Or like, you're not going to pick up that level of load because we have, 2-3 megawatt transformers at most traction power substations, or we're using a bunch of power. It takes thousands of amps to move trains. So if, we don't have generator assets to move trains, but we have generator assets to get people safely out of buildings, things of that nature.
Sounds good.
Great. And sorry, I apologize. Giddy, how many more presentations do we have? I just want to make sure we have enough
One
time
more.
for everyone. One more.
Just Bill on vehicles.
Perfect.
And then whatever else you folks want to hear from a Q&A perspective, we're happy to answer. But we can jump right into Bill unless there's any more questions on power.
Sounds
Great.
good to me.
Bill, take it away.
Second. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Bill Wolfgang. I'm the Senior Director of Vehicle Engineering. Been with the T just over 21 years. Have been in the vehicle engineering my entire career, and I have I've got the update for our vehicle acceptance status and our vehicle projections for several projects. The red and orange line is one of our biggest initiatives that's come to fruition during my career. It was for 404 cars. We initiated this contract back in 2014, December 2014. We initiated this contract, and to date, we have delivered out of the orange line cars. We've delivered 144. You'll see 142 that's been conditionally accepted. Conditionally accepted means that the vehicle engineering department has fully tested the vehicles and they're available for service. And that's where we hand over the vehicle to our transportation department and our service department. Currently, we have one married pair in burn-in, what we call burn-in, which is kind of like a simulated service. We go back and forth, making sure that everything's working properly. And it kind of gets the electronics working all properly together. And it flushes out some of those first failures if there are going to be any. For the orange line, our next shipment is due to arrive towards the end of this month. We're looking forward to that one. We've got 8 more vehicles to deliver, so that's 4 married pairs. Currently, we're anticipating the last one to be delivered around September, October, and that will be commissioned and placed into service expected by the end of the year. So we should have all 152 orange line cars by then. Now I'll bring you into the red line cars. So the red line cars, it was another, both orange and red line are manufactured by CRC. company that is located in Springfield, their final assembly in Springfield, and their main assembly in China. To date, out of the 252 cars, we have 46 that have been delivered. 34 are available for service, so they're conditionally accepted. We've got several that are in, we're expecting to buy another set this week, another married pair. We've got several that are in burn-in and static and dynamic testing. And we're hopeful to continue this delivery rate of 2, eventually getting to 3, and eventually next year getting to 4 married pairs per month. So we're looking forward to working with CRC to kind of get this production schedule to get us vehicles on time to meet our needs. Obviously, some of the oldest vehicles that we're replacing are from 1969, 68, 69 on the red line. So we're in need of replacing those. So those have earned their retirement. Moving on to our bus. So right now we've taken an initiative to purchase some battery electric buses. We purchased our first order of 80 buses from New Flyer. This is going to coincide with the opening of the new Quincy facility, new maintenance bus facility in 2027. We'll be delivering 48 cars for that right now. And later this year, we're opening up our North Cambridge facility, which will house 32 vehicles. So we're on target. These are the delivery schedules of when we're going to receive those. We don't want the buses to be sticking around, just sitting out of service. And we don't really have any of the charging structure in place to charge them. So once the charging network is in place, we'll start accepting the buses. And we got our first 10 that we were able to kind of get as a preemptive test, and allows us to kind of kick the tires and figure out our challenges with our maintenance department, our challenges with our operators, and really kind of train them on the expectations of what's going to happen when we transition to a 100% zero emission fleet. It's a big change. It's not an evolution like we've had over the last 100 years with a diesel engine. It's more of a revolution where we're changing the complete technology. We're basically turning our buses into a rubber railroad. So it's a very interesting time, and we're working with our maintenance department to make sure that everybody is trained and on board for when these do arrive. Like I said, we've got the first 10. We've bought 4 of them so far, and we're looking to get the remaining 70. Now, we do have an option that we're still in negotiation with New Flyer for an additional 40 vehicles, and that will put the 32 at North Cambridge, and it'll put 88 buses at Quincy, and that is a complete fulfillment of the requirements for that particular garage, and that would give that the everything dispatched out of that particular garage would be these electric. Excuse me. Green Line pilot car. We're in the process right now of finishing up our critical design review with CAF. We're looking to get this cleaned up by the end of the year, and in the same time, we're also building the first pilot cars. We have the partial structures completed, and they're in what they call outfitting, which is where they start including the wiring harnesses, the windows, the exterior paneling, all the propulsion, all the braking, all the equipment that goes into it to make it a vehicle, including the seating. We're right now just entering into that first phase of final assembly with the first pilot structures. It's kind of an exciting time where everything's starting to come together as a whole. Our vision right now is to have the first pilot car delivered by April of 26, with 3 additional cars delivered throughout the year. This will allow us to get the operators trained, similar to the bus, get the operators trained, get the maintenance department familiar with the vehicle, get operations, transportation familiar with the vehicle so they can start training operators. And then when we start receiving production vehicles in 2027, after a thorough test of these pilot cars, we'll be able to hit the ground running and put these right into service. And you know, our expectations is that it'll be a seamless introduction into service, allowing us to retire some of those old high floor and older vehicles that were delivered in the 80s. I think that's my last. Oh, one more. Sorry. Commuter rail. Commuter rail. Right now, we have just finished up delivering an 83 coach, bi-level coach procurement from Hyundai Rotem. We bought 40 control cars and 43 control cars and 40 blind trailers, and these are being utilized throughout the network. We also included the added increase in fleet size based off of the South Coast Rail project. That was the reasoning behind this large purchase. We have recently, I went to the board within the last couple of months in 2024 to include an additional option for 80 coaches, which would include 70 blinds and 10 controls. Those are on target right now to deliver between September of next year and April of 2028. Hyundai Rotem, one thing that I've got to admit that they have a very regimented supply chain, and they are, I can't thank them enough for being perfectly on schedule and on budget. So it's been a very interesting 83 coach, and we're looking forward to getting these additional 80 coaches here as soon as possible. With that, I'm available for questions.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Just 2 questions from me, and then I can turn it over to other folks who might have questions. So this might be more vehicle operations, but when I take the red line in the morning, I've noticed that there are certain trains that are running 4-car coaches.
Yeah.
You know anything about that and can speak to that? And then the second question is, are you anticipating or have you seen any impacts from the tariffs or the supply chain disruptions that have been caused by those? So 2, hopefully 1 softball, and then hopefully maybe 1 that's a little bit more difficult.
The tariff question is something that we are struggling with our red line, orange line contract, our green line contract, our Hyundai contract, and our bus contract. These are things that are still in negotiation with the manufacturers. It's a very interesting time, to say the least. But we're working with the manufacturers to see what we can and can't do. I think that's right now all that we have to offer. Yeah, other than, you know, we are watching this very closely. As for your other question, can you repeat your first question? I'm sorry, I took the second one first.
That's okay. The 4-car trains on the red line.
Oh, 4-car. So I am not, you know, as part of the transportation requirements, I am not really involved with how many cars they make up for a specific consist. We are just trying to provide them with as many vehicles as possible so they can replace a 6-car set with a 6-car set. And we try to maneuver that as well as we can. We're trying to get CRC to deliver, Hyundai Rotem to deliver, New Flyer to deliver as quickly as possible to meet those needs. Transportation will make those decisions on whether or not they want to do a 4-car.
Gotcha.
So
Thank you.
I'll jump in here, Matt, on
Sure.
your questions as well, and then I'm happy to take the rest of the questions just to give a slightly fuller answer to help Bill here a little bit. Bill answered on tariffs better than I would. I'll just add, Bill obviously sees it very up close on the vehicles where it's super prevalent. We are also seeing rumblings on all construction, which I'm assuming everybody who's involved in construction is at least hearing rumblings. But raw materials and everything steel and everything. So like we don't really have anything to share that you folks are probably dealing with on some level yourself. It's interesting times, as Bill said, and I'll leave it at that. The 4-car contest is an ongoing sort of initiative on the Red Line to deal with 2 things. And I'm not the expert on this, so when you get Deirdre and her team here, whenever next time, they'll have significantly better, more detailed answers. But I'm happy to share the little bit that I do know about this. It's really not Bill's shop, so I'm trying to help him a little bit. Bill just goes out and buys new cars. And then make sure they're good, they're safe and everything else. It's to deal with 2 things. One is first and foremost an attempt to increase frequency. Frequency is critical for rapid transit. It's in the name of rapid transit. The idea that by increasing frequency, you basically improve service across the board. You reduce the obvious stuff, right? Like you reduce it, you make it easier for the customer, and so on and so forth. And so you're trying to balance your desire to increase frequency, reduce headway, improve the customer experience, and you're dealing with a slightly shrinking fleet due to age, mostly, I'd say, which is why Bill's working so hard to replenish our Red Line fleet, which is why we're buying so many vehicles. We're trying to renew the fleet. And so as you're seeing, we basically realized that we had enough, I may be using the wrong term here, but locomotives almost for these sort of things to run more than we had just coaches. Again, not the right term. Bill can give me the right terms later, as I apologize for the wrong terminology here. That we had those enough of that we could run more control cars basically. And that allowed us to run the higher frequency, even if we couldn't, load as passengers on them. There are concerns with this, obviously, that we had to address from safety and accessibility and matters of that nature. But we realized that the improved frequency is just worth it for us to both, if it's this or not running a regular 6-car or running nothing at all, we significantly prefer the improved service than running 4 cars. We 100% agreement with Bill. I would rather put a 6-car on the Red Line over a 4-car any given minute. But when it's that one or the other, we prefer the increased frequency, increased service. So there was quite a bit of work that went into modeling the service impacts, as long with the rest of it, the sort of safety concerns that one can imagine. And we sort of tested it for a while as well on off-peak. But the age of the fleet is the age of the fleet, and we're sort of trying to balance those things. So, like I said, the ops folks can probably give a much more detail on how they balance the schedule and when to put it. And they're trying to do it at off-peak times, but the car count doesn't always allow for it. So it's a balancing act a little bit between both trying to improve service and trying to maintain service and dealing with an aging fleet. So I hope that sort of answers some of that.
Yeah, it's really good
Can
context.
I make one other comment that
Sure.
affects, like on the commuter rail? So we're buying bi-level coaches. That is replacing all the single level coaches. So we're eventually going to get rid of those single levels, which we're increasing our carrying capacity by almost double. It's not quite double. It's about we're going from 120 to 170. So that's a pretty big number of additional seats. So that allows us to shrink the consist on the commuter rail. So I just thought that was important.
That's good context. Thank you. All right, Susan, and then Andy.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for all this information. I really appreciate it. And I have a question for you about communications of all of this stuff to the public. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but when the track improvement work was being done and finished up last year, it felt like there was more communication going out to the public about it. It seemed like, and I don't know, maybe that was like a bigger deal. I'm not quite sure, but there were also really great informational videos about what was happening. And now what I'm hearing is people saying like, wait, but I thought they did all their work. Weren't they supposed to be done with everything? And I get that these are like different things that are happening. I'm not sure that the public necessarily knows that. I don't know how much communication has been done about these projects. Maybe I'm just not getting all the right algorithms to like get whatever media you have, but I'm curious if you know if these projects kind of have more of that public facing communications like I think the track maintenance work had.
So I think communicating the work is always a challenge. I think we had almost a little bit of an advantage with the track improvement program because it was this like one mega program that it was easier to explain due to the speed restriction. The press was very interested, and it was like an ongoing thing, like a year-long thing. And so the projects, as far as the infrastructure work, they were incredibly distinct from one another, but the concept of them were like, we're removing the speed restriction, we're fixing the track, we're making the train go back faster, back to its normal speed. Is a relatively simple story to explain. If we take Sam's deck, for example, on signals work, which there have been videos about, and there have been some interviews about, and there are like pages on mbta.com on every project and so on, and we're trying to get the social media team to put information, but it's a lot more invisible. A lot of the work that we're talking about, except new vehicles, is a lot more like the improved signal system is about reducing the amount of time the signal forces a breakdown or a slowdown in service, which is a much harder story to tell. Also, we are nowhere near done. We are still working on track. We still have things that regularly break down and fix. This system is still aged and underinvested. We're in the process of renovating it and getting it to a better state of good repair. It is a much more complicated story to tell. And so we are trying to put effort in it. I will readily admit we could always be better about our communication. Yes, it's a little more challenging. We are trying to learn a lot of the positive lessons that came out of track improvement program by doing more community outreach on certain projects. But because like power is another good example, right? Like we have redundancy. We want to make sure that redundancy stays in place so that power continues to run the service and that it stays safe and that we can, all these different things, and we're trying to keep it from collapsing in certain areas. Those are harder stories to tell someone. So we are constantly trying to figure out how situations like this, where hopefully you can spread the word as well, are sort of ideas on how do we improve. So I do agree on the whole that there are more stories we could tell. There are better ways we could be telling this. I get it as well. Like you did all this work last year. You destroyed my commute for a whole year. Like you couldn't, like you're still doing that. So we hope it's a lot better this year. We're trying to not destroy the commute as much. We apologize for the roughness that was last year, even if it was for a good cause. But yeah, it's a lot more sort of specific work on the much more, it's not as easy to see. And we're trying to keep it invisible, right? The idea is that the system doesn't break down, right? Like the idea is it's like you turn on the light switch, it works. You don't ask yourself, well, what is all the work that's happening on the background? The train just runs, and we're still not perfect at it yet. So fair criticism. We could be better about communicating. We are trying to get better about communicating, but it's a slightly more nuanced story is really what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Thanks, Giddy and Susan. So we have time for one more question, then we just need a little bit of time at the end for some administrative items. So go ahead, Andy.
Hopefully this is a quick question. Just kind of curious with the new battery bus, the ones that are coming in, if there's some particularly novel or new features that would be good to look out for. Obviously with like the new generation of New Flyers, like the seating arrangement changed kind of in the low floor area. If there's other modifications like that that are of interest. I'm curious because I'll be hopefully seeing those buses in Cambridge, relatively soon. But just want to be kind of aware of what to look out for.
So the big thing is we did change the paint scheme a little bit. It's a little bit different. I think that's been displayed on TV and through other media. But the big thing is we actually are New Flyers, one of their first customers with their new Excelsior 3-door, which is a street side door for our Harvard tunnel. So we're going to have that flexibility again with that vehicle. The added feature with that is not only a door, but it also includes a wheelchair ramp. So we have that capability too. That's probably the biggest change with these buses. Now, obviously, the 32 that we're getting for North Cambridge and the what will eventually be 88 for, or envisioned to be 88 for Quincy. The Quincy buses will not have the third door, but the North Cambridge buses will. That's the biggest change. And they're quiet.
Well, good news on that. So just want to say thank you to the T folks who are on this call for your time today. This has been super informative. And if there's follow-up questions, Giddy, can we go through
Yeah,
you?
just reach out.
Great.
No problem.
Thank you.
All right.
So
Should we jump off or are you doing your own thing?
you're welcome to stay. You're welcome to go. We're just going to be approving meeting minutes. So
Right.
up to you. But thanks
Thanks,
again.
folks. Thank you for having us. Take care. Reach out with anything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so just a few quick administrative things. So I skipped over this at the beginning, so I apologize, but wanted to see if there might be somebody who would make a motion to approve the May meeting minutes.
I make the motion.
All right, do we have a second?
it. I'll second.
I just have one addition. The attendees didn't include me. And I was
Okay.
there.
Thank you, and sorry for that oversight, Amy.
Otherwise, fine.
So with that one addition, can we get, let's do a vote to approve the meeting minutes. All in favor, just raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And any abstentions? If you could please just speak out so I can make sure I see you. All right, perfect. So vote passes and we will make that one change. The next meeting is on September 16th. So take a few months off for the summer. Enjoy your time. And we'll see you back here in late summer, early fall. So thanks everyone for a good half year so far.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Jen, anything before we leave?
No, thank you all. Have a great summer. Thanks,
Awesome.
Matt.